Okay, so welcome back. In this video we're going to be looking at the index page and we're going to start rearranging the header and the footer and also adding some content to our functions file. Okay, so a couple of things before we get started. If you make sure that the MAMP, which you downloaded in the last video, is up and running. So if you say start servers, make sure that you click on them to get that started. And then in your text editor, if you open up the Tranquil WP, which is the theme folder for the project, and then head over to your web browser, and then if you type in the localhost :8888 and then /tranquil-wp, and this will take us to the index page that we need to begin working on. If you need to get back to the WordPress dashboard, we need to just add /admin onto the end of the URL, and that will take us back to the dashboard. Okay, so let's get started. In the text editor, we created our header and the footer files in the last video. So we're going to put both the header and the footer in these files. So we're going to take the header and the footer from the index page. So if you go to the Index.php and then scroll to the top of the page, we need to copy or cut all the content from the very top of the web page all the way down until we get to the closing header tag, which is just there. So copy all that right to the very top and then cut that. And now the header section is going to go into its own file, which is the header.php. So paste that in there and save. And then if we go back into the index page, we'll do exactly the same with the footer section. So scroll down to the bottom of the page and then below the shop online section, if we look for the footer comment, and then cut all the content right to the very end of the index page. So cut that and then head to the footer.php and paste that in and save. Okay, so if we go back to the Index.php, so what we're left with is just the main content of the web page. We've taken out the header and the footer section. So because now the header and the footer are in their own files, we need to link those back to the index page, and that's quite straightforward to do. If we go back to the very top where the header section was, we're going to start using some PHP. So to begin with PHP, first of all, we need to have the file name with the PHP extension. And then to use PHP in the page, we use an opening angle bracket and then a question mark and then PHP. So this is the opening tag, and the closing tag is the question mark and then the closing angle bracket. Okay, and then between the opening and closing bracket, we use the WordPress get header function. So get _ header. And because it's a function, we use the curly brackets and then a semicolon at the end. And then we do exactly the same, but use get footer at the very bottom of the page. So again, we'll use the PHP opening and closing tags. And then inside the tags, we use a WordPress get footer function, the brackets, and then the semicolon. So effectively what we've created is a header and a footer template, and every time we want to reuse these in WordPress, rather than retyping over the same code over and over again, we can just simply use the PHP and use the get header or the get footer function. So, and save the index page. And then next we need to go over to our functions.php. And because all the functions are going to be in PHP, we need to make sure that all the content on this page is between the opening and closing PHP tags. So let's start by creating a PHP function. So if you've not used PHP before, it uses the function keyword. And a function is basically just a chunk of code which we give a name to, and we can call it when we need it. So to set this up, use function and then the name afterwards, which is tranquil WP _ setup. And then at the end of the function name, we use the curly brackets and then use a set of curly braces And all the information that we'll put between the curly braces is going to be the code which is executed when the theme is set up. So we'll add more to this later, but for now we're just going to add some theme support for RSS or automatic feed links. So we do that by add theme support, and in the quotes type in automatic -feed -links, and then a semicolon at the end, and just make sure that's the feed there. So that makes sure all the RSS information gets to the head section properly. And we're going to add theme support also for the title tag, and this enables both themes and plugins to access the document title, so we can change it dynamically. So add theme support, and don't forget the quotes in there. And this one is going to be the title tag, so title -tag. So next we need to tell WordPress to run this function when setting up the theme. So if we go outside the curly braces, and then we need to add an action, and the bracket, and then the semicolon at the end. And this is going to take in two parameters. So the first one in the quotes is after _setup _theme. And then separated by a comma, we need to put the function name, which is tranquil WP setup. So we're going to just copy that and paste that between the quotes. And then just one more piece of PHP we need to add into the functions file before we move on, is if we go up to the very top. Okay, so we're going to use a PHP if statement. So if you've not seen one of these before, it's really nothing to worry about. So I'll just get started by typing it out, and then we'll talk over exactly what's happening. So we're just going to check if a condition is met, and if it is, we'll run the piece of code between these curly braces. So the piece of code we want to run is we want to add a variable called the content width, and this is going to be set to 660 pixels. And this value is going to control the maximum width of any piece of content which is in the WordPress theme. And we use this to make sure that the user can't upload something such as an image, which is far too large for the design and causes layout problems. And then we'll put our condition between the brackets at the top. So I'm going to use the exclamation mark, and then is set. And then between two more curly brackets, we're going to put our variable, which is the content width. So this if statement would normally check if this variable exists by using is set, but because we're using the exclamation mark before it, it's checking the opposite. So if the variable content width is not set, then use the variable between these curly braces and make sure the content is no bigger than 660 pixels wide. Okay, so that's the functions finished for this video. We'll add more to this as we progress through the course, but just one more thing I want to show you before we finish this video is now we're starting to add PHP to our website. We need to make sure that debugging is enabled, and I'll just show you exactly why. If we go over to Chrome and then we'll go to visit site, this is how the site is looking now. It doesn't look very pretty, but it is working. So if we go over to our index page and then make a typing mistake. So for example, if we go to the PHP at the top of the page, and for example, if we weren't to put in the closing tag after the PHP, and then if we refresh the browser, you can see that we get a white screen. So because we've got a white blank screen, we know that we've made a mistake somewhere, but we've got no indication to show us exactly where we've gone wrong. So to give us an indication of exactly which line of code we've gone wrong on, we need to go to our WordPress folder, which is in the htdocs. So find mamp, htdocs, tranquil WP, and then we need to go back into the config file, where we set our database information. So just double click to open that up. And then if you scroll down below all the password and database information, and then the keys and salts, and right at the bottom of the page, if you look for the define WP debug, by default this is set to false. So we're going to set this to true and then save that. But don't forget to change this back to false if you were to upload this to a web server. So save that and then refresh in Chrome. And then this will give us a error line. And this tells us exactly where we've gone wrong. So in our index page on line 3, let's take a look. So we can see that the issue was on line 1, but WordPress didn't discover there was an issue until it found some HTML on line 3. So it may not be exactly on the line, but it'll give us a good indication exactly where the problem lies. So then we can just close off that PHP, save, and then refresh, and everything should be working again. Okay, so that's the end of this video, and we'll see you in the next video where we'll start working on the header and the footer.